Hey folks, Scott Klom here, and we're going to talk about beets. I've got a nice golden beet here. I've got a red beet here. I picked up a handful of beets at the farmer's market this morning, and they're going to be going into the oven to roast. We're going to talk about a couple of different ways to roast your beets. But before we do that, let's talk a bit about the beet itself. How to pick a good beet. What the heck do you do with the beet after you roast it? Why do you even want to eat one, right? So the best way to get your beets to prepare yourself is to go to your local farmer's market. Buy local, get to know the farmers, and get to know the beet varieties that are available to you. You want to pick a beet that is firm, much like when you're picking a potato. You don't want something that's kind of mushy and too spongy in your hand. You can get large beets, you can get little beets. I mean, that's really not going to matter other than the amount of time it's going to take for those to roast. You can get your beets when possible. Pick some beets that actually still have the greens attached, because you can cut those down and save those. You can saute the greens down, have them with some garlic, some lemon, add them to a frittata. They're just another great way to get some greens. But I wasn't able to get beets with greens this morning, and that's just fine. I've got some nice varieties here. And once you roast your beets, what are you going to do with them? A lot of us are familiar with the pickled beets. You may see them in the grocery stores, just the jars of the deep red pickled beets. I know that when I was a kid, my first encounter with the beets were as the vegetable that made the hard-boiled eggs red, because my grandmother would pickle beets with the hard-boiled eggs, and I thought they were just sort of there for coloring until I started eating them and really enjoying them. So you can have them pickled, absolutely. They're great once they're roasted or pickled in salads with like a tangy cheese or some citrus. Try some goat cheese, some feta cheese in your salads. Certainly soups. I've seen fish dishes with them. There are dessert recipes out there that use beets, some brownies, some chocolate cake recipes that will actually use beets. There's ice cream. I may have mentioned soup already, and juicing and smoothies. Another great way to use your beets. So there are lots of options out there, and when we roast them, we're going to get a really concentrated, sweet beet flavor, very, very rich. So I guess the last question there would be, other than the flavor and the options available to us in terms of how to prepare them and cook them, why we want to eat them. And the beet is actually a great vegetable for antioxidants. It's got some anti-inflammatory properties. So the beet's an awesome vegetable and really easy to prepare. Let's talk about how we want to do that. Now, one thing I like to do with roasting the beets, if you're just going to be doing beets, fine. Fire up your oven, preheat that sucker to like 375, 400 degrees. But if you're already cooking something in the oven, it's very easy to just add some beets, tuck some beets in around everything else that you're cooking, and you can roast them up that way. So I've got some new potatoes, some kale for kale chips. Again, just stuff from the farmer's market. That's going to be going in the oven, and so it's a perfect opportunity to do the beets as well. Now, there are two ways that you can do your beets. There may be more, but we're going to talk about two ways to do your beets in the oven. One way that's popular is to use some aluminum foil and just wrap the beets individually, wrap them loosely in the aluminum foil. Some people will add a little bit of oil, a little olive oil, a little coconut oil, something like that to the beet. I find that they're great without anything added. Now, personally, my personal preference is not to cook my food in aluminum foil, and I happen to have a Dutch oven. So if you have something like this, that you use for risotto or casseroles or something like that, you can just put like an inch and a half of water in the bottom of this and simply add your beets to the Dutch oven. Regardless of whether you're using the Dutch oven or whether you're using the aluminum foil, you're going to put the beets in anywhere from 50 to 60 minutes or more. It's really not an exact science, just like with the temperature. You're going to want to check them every 20 minutes or so and make sure that they're not scorching or drying out. If they are, you just add a little bit of water, whether it's in the foil or in the Dutch oven, a little bit of water. And the other thing you want to make sure of when you prepare your beet for roasting is to not, if it does have the root still intact, don't cut that off. And also, if you have the greens, don't cut off the top of the beet. You want to not essentially injure the beet in any way. You don't want to puncture the skin, because then you're going to have leaky beets. You don't want those juices escaping during the roasting process, because the beets are going to dry out faster that way. You're going to lose the juice and the sweetness of the vegetable, and it's also going to make a mess for you when it's time to clean up. So now that we've kind of talked a lot about the beets, let's actually get to it. The first step is going to be to clean them, and a little vegetable brush of some variety is a cheap and, in my opinion, absolutely essential tool to have in your kitchen, not just for your beets, but for any kind of root vegetable or anything that you're going to be cleaning. So you want to get them nice and clean without scrubbing too hard and damaging the surface of the beet, and make sure you get particularly the tops nice and clean. So I'm going to take my beets over to the sink and do that. I'll be right back. Alright, I have some nice, clean, freshly scrubbed beets here, and I'm going to take my Dutch oven. It's already got the water in it, and I'm going to put a couple of these beets in here, and then I'm also going to take one of the beets and wrap it in the foil. Just wrap it very loosely like this, and then this I can tuck onto one of my baking sheets that already has some of the potatoes or some of the kale on it, just so that if I do get any drippings, they'll drip right onto the baking sheet. And the casserole, the Dutch oven, is going to go next to the baking sheets on one of the racks. We're going to check back in an hour and see what the beets look like. Alright, well, we're back, and it took about 50 minutes in the oven for my beets to finish roasting, both the ones that were in the Dutch oven and the ones that I wrapped up in the aluminum foil. So let's take a quick look at what they look like and how to actually make sure that you're testing them every 20 minutes or so when they're in the oven, just to see if they're getting done, so you can take them out in advance, make sure they don't dry out if you need to. Let's see what they look like. Alright, so here we have the beets that were in the Dutch oven. As you can see, the water did get, sort of a little discolored there from the juices that leak out, and that's going to happen a little bit more as you test them for doneness. But you'll see you just want, a fork or a knife to, just like a potato really, you want it to be sinking right into the vegetable there, and that's how you're going to know it's done. Here we have the one that we did in the foil, and again, it's just, it's the same thing. This guy roasted up nicely. Okay, so the last thing really to do to finish up with your beets before you can slice them or just store them in the fridge for later is to take care of that skin. Remember, when we put them in the oven, we didn't do any peeling, we didn't do anything like that, and that's the beauty of roasting them like this, because the skin is going to come right off. Now, generally, I want to let them cool a little bit, rinse them off, so that they're cool enough that I can touch them. But you're just going to use, you can use paper towel basically. All right, so you see I've got my beet here, and then all I'm going to do is start rubbing the skin, and you see how easily that starts to peel off. I mean, it just takes seconds to get that skin off there. Ooh, and it's still hot, so that's a good reason for waiting. But you see how that just peels right off of there. And that's really all it takes. Now, you can store these beets once they're roasted for about a week in the fridge, And again, I basically just get the peel off and I store them just like this, so I can take it out and slice off just as much as I need for salad or recipe, whatever it is I'm doing. You can go ahead and slice them in advance and store them that way, whatever floats your boat. But it's that easy to roast your own beets for recipes, for salads, however you're going to use them, for pickling. So go out, find a farmer's market, pick up some beets and give it a whirl. See you guys next time.